Alright, here's our video on the Empire of Songhai. And that's how it's pronounced, Songhai, not Songhai. So the Empire of Songhai was the largest of the West African empires that we talked about. We talked about Ghana, we talked about Mali, and now Songhai. It wasn't the largest West African empire, though. When we talked about Ghana, we talked about the Almoravids. And the Almoravids, I'll just bring this map over here. So remember the Almoravids, who were in Morocco, and they came in and they disrupted Ghana. Didn't conquer Ghana, but they did disrupt Ghana, paving the way for Mali. And now we have Songhai, and Songhai was the largest of between Mali and Ghana. But the Almoravids actually were larger, if we're talking about just landmass. Now the capital of Songhai was Gao. Here it is, right there, Gao. And if we're looking at dates for this empire, there's some dates that may be debatable. Because the first big ruler that we'll talk about is Sunni Ali. But before Sunni Ali, so first let's look at these dates. So we can look at any between the fall of Mali in 1375, and then Songhai would eventually be defeated in 1591 by, actually not the Almoravids, because they weren't around anymore, but Moroccans would come in, and you can see right here it says the Battle of Tondibi. In the Battle of Tondibi, the Moroccans would defeat the Songhai Empire. So we know that the ending date of Songhai, but the beginning date is a little debatable. So we know that in the capital of Gao, that the Songhai people would rise up, and eventually they would consolidate power and start taking over different cities in Songhai. And the first city they would actually take over, besides Gao, would be Timbuktu, which is over here. So the first important ruler of the Songhai Empire, person who would eventually expand to the Atlantic Ocean, was Sunni Ali. Now, Sunni Ali was the first king of the Songhai Empire, and he didn't reign until about 14. So this is when the city of Gao rebelled in 1375. Sunni Ali, and some people say Sonny Ali, some people pronounce it like this, Sonny Ali. He didn't come into power as the first king till about 1469. So, again, in 1375, the city of Gao would rebel against Mali, and then Sunni Ali in 1469 would become the first king of the Songhai Empire. And by the way, Sunni Ali, he did conquer Timbuktu, because Timbuktu, the leaders of Timbuktu, asked for his aid. So we're looking at the first expansion, imperial expansion, about 1469. And ironically, Gao today is in the modern-day country of Mali. So this is the modern-day country of Mali, right here. And this is the Niger River. So again, and we'll just leave this map here for a minute, with Songhai and with Ghana and Mali, remember, the two big trading centers with trading the commodities of gold and salt, and of course slaves. Now there was other things obviously in the marketplace that we talked about in previous videos, but the gold, salt, and slave trade was big within that empire. So let's go back to Sunni Ali, or Sonny Ali, in 1469. He was their ruler. He was their king. So after Sunni Ali's death, his son tried to take control of Songhai, but was not an efficient ruler. So the great ruler that a lot of historians talk about is Askia. I'm going to write his name here. Muhammad Askia. He would take control in 1493. So if we're looking at dates, if we're trying to understand what's going on in our timeline in history, we know in 1492, Columbus is sailing after he learned about the westerlies and the easterly trade winds, Columbus is sailing to what he would think would be a shortcut to the East Indies. So at that time, a year after, Askia Muhammad is taking control of Songhai, and he's going to enlarge Songhai. He's going to make it officially a Muslim. It'll be an Islamic kingdom, and he would take over the salt, the gold, and the slave trade. So Askia Muhammad, 1493. So let's go back to the map here. So what we're seeing here again is the fall of Songhai. But let's just review certain things. If we go back to the first king, Sunni Ali, he became over time somewhat like a legendary hero with magical powers over time. So there are some stories you'll hear about Sunni Ali as someone having magical powers. Now when Askia took over, 1493, and when he consolidated his own power, he divided Songhai into 5 different areas. Now, if you were captured as an enemy in Songhai, you were sold as a slave. And remember, the trans-Saharan trade routes, salt coming in from here, gold coming from the gold mines in the south, and slaves. But if you were Muslim, you couldn't be sold as a slave. So, within a very short time, Songhai would have a big Islamic influence under Askia. And even though the capital was Gao, Timbuktu, which was the capital of Mali, became a big center of trade, especially the slave trade for Songhai. Now, as we said earlier, eventually Songhai would fall to the Moroccans, and the big battle would be the Battle of Tondibi, where the Moroccans eventually conquered Songhai in 1591. So now our next video will talk about the slave trade now, after 1591, how the Moroccans would have dealt with, now that they control this area, how they would have dealt with the Europeans coming in, especially the Portuguese.